everyone, welcome back to this week's live stream. And this time we are going to be talking about Christopher Nolan in honor of Oppenheimer coming out this Friday, July 21st. So we're going to dive right into it. We're going to start off right away. Kevin L asked a question and he wrote, "What's the first Christopher Nolan movie you saw in theaters?" And that actually is going to be 2008's The Dark Knight, because I didn't see Memento or Insomnia in theaters. And then once Batman Begins came out in 2005, I didn't actually go see it in theaters because Batman and Robin left such a bad taste in everybody's mouth. And even though I was a Batman fan, I was not excited about Batman Begins. I remember my stepdad's brother Brian. Told me about it, and he was like, "Oh, you got to see it. They got this guy Christopher Nolan directed it. They brought in Christian Bale. I've never heard of any of these people at the time, even in 2005. And they're like, the villain's going to be Scarecrow." So I wasn't even aware that movie was like, I knew it was coming out, but I just wasn't excited for it. And then once The Dark Knight came out in 2008, the build up to that ever since then, I've seen every movie in theaters except for one of those movies. And that movie was Interstellar. But that's just because money was tight at the time. And then the 17th-year-old Blu-ray collector. Well, my first Nolan film was Tenet back in 2021. I mostly saw the Blu-rays. Yeah, I got all the Blu-rays and 4Ks that I own actually right behind me over here. I pretty much have always seen his stuff in theaters except for Interstellar because I was kind of tight of money at the time. And then, ever since then, I've pretty much tried to go back and always see his movies in theaters at least once. Tenet, I actually saw in theaters twice. I love Tenet. Top 3 Nolan 4Ks. So I just watched Inception last night. I have some thoughts about the 4Ks. I wanted to ask you guys about these. I believe these came out in 2018. Most of them, except the ones that have come out since that initial 4K drop. I remember they released Inception, Interstellar, The Prestige, and the Dark Knight trilogy all in one shot. I want to say it was at the end of 2018. Maybe it was early 2019. But they all lacked Dolby Vision. And I was watching Inception last night, and I wasn't blown away. Great 4Ks, but I wasn't truly blown away by it. But if I was going to pick, but Interstellar is definitely his number one as far as 4Ks go. I think that's definitely the best one. And then The Dark Knight is probably number 2. And then at number 3, I'm not, even though Inception's like my favorite, I'm not going to put that at number 3. I think I'm going to actually put The Prestige at number 3. I think that is a beautiful looking 4K, beautiful looking film, very underrated in general in this filmography. Rogue One 677 wrote, "Well, the only one I have is Tenet, and it was stunning in 4K. The DTS MA, which is Master Audio 5.1, was reference quality." Yes, Tenet is the most recent addition to the 4Ks of his, and that's because that came out in 2021, which was 1 year or a few months after it came out in theaters in 2020. And that one's probably like the most updated. Probably that one would be the best looking visually, just because it's the most recent and it came out after the initial run of the 4Ks. The original 4Ks that Nolan had come out all came out under the same technology, under the same Warner Brothers banner at the same time. They were promoting it. They even had a trail and everything promoting his movies coming to 4K. And I was excited. That was one of the big reasons why I was so happy to be invested in 4K at the time, because Nolan, to me, made some of the best looking movies. And I remember when Blu-ray came around and The Dark Knight came out, and that was like the Blu-ray you had to have. You had to have The Dark Knight on Blu-ray. You could see the purple string from the heist at the beginning of the movie, and the Joker puts that thing, I think, what's his name, William something's mouth, and you can see the string coming from his mouth to the back of the bus. The Blu-ray was the big hype. That was it. You had to have the Dark Knight Blu-ray. That was the Blu-ray to have. So I was thinking that's what we were going to get when we went to their 4Ks. I just was not completely blown away. John Doe Juggler wrote, "Hey, what's up, dude? What's up, buddy? How you doing?" Rogue 1677 wrote, Hell, I even have the original Dark Knight and Rises Blu-ray releases, and while Rise is amazing, I'm not sure on the original Dark Knight Blu-ray." And then Mr. Unknown 1990 wrote, "Hey guys, what's happening here? What's up, buddy? Welcome to the live stream." Yeah, the Dark Knight Rises. I've had actually the Dark Knight trilogy in DVD, Blu-ray, and now I have it in 4K. I can't recall the Dark Knight Rises Blu-ray off the top of my head. I just remember the Dark Knight Blu-ray because I remember that was just such a big deal. I had that lenticular lens cover when it first came out. I just remember that was like the big Blu-ray to have. I don't remember what the Dark Knight Rises was. I just remember that I bought the trilogy on DVD, and then I only had it for a little while before I upgraded to the Blu-ray. And then the Blu-rays, I believe I only watched once before I got the 4K. John Doe Juggler wrote, "My Nolan watch list is is missing gaps. Man, you got time to catch up before Oppenheimer, but I mean, there's some in there that you know I don't love every single one of his movies, but there are some in there that pretty much are masterpieces that you have to watch. But some, like I didn't love Dunkirk like everybody else loved Dunkirk. And then Kevin Elroy, actors you want Nolan to work with. Well, he's actually worked with some pretty big stars. It's funny because I would say Denzel Washington, but obviously he's worked with his son John David Washington in his most recent movie. I think that Lakeith Stanfield would be a great addition to his kind of cast. I think he has like that perfect acting style that would fit in with what Nolan does. You know, you got to have like the certain look to fit in with Nolan movies. And I think Lakeith Stanfield, maybe even Daniel Kaluuya would fit in there. I would love to see Tom Cruise, but Tom Cruise and him, I feel like they would not mesh well, and I don't think it'll ever happen. But you know, they both love cinema so much. They love the movie theater experience. It would be so cool to see Tom Cruise in one of these movies because they both love practical effects. You'd think it would be a match made in heaven, but I think they're both too controlling, and I don't think they would get along at all. And let's see where else would what else we got going on here. Rogue One, Rogue. I can honestly say Batman Begins 4K looks amazing, but the original release was interesting with its picture quality. Yeah, they kind of went with a unique look of Batman Begins, and that's what I actually love about Batman Begins. It's got like that burnt orange look to it, the whole thing. You know, the way the night shots, it's got that warm orange look to it, which is so different from how the Dark Knight looks. It's weird because you know they're supposed to take place in the same universe, but the Dark Knight you think of blues and grays and maybe purples, while you think of oranges, blacks when it comes to the color pattern of the Batman Begins. And Robin Williams, even yes, Robin Williams, you know, that's one of his key performances in Insomnia. You know, a lot of people don't bring it up because, how rare was it that he was playing a villain? Although 1 Hour Photo was around that same exact time, and he plays an even scarier character in that than he does in Insomnia. But he was scary as hell in Insomnia. Wahoo 120 wrote, "What's up, fellas? How we doing today? What's up, buddy?" And Shamrock Balls wrote, "Hey, John, what's up, Shamrock? Glad to see you made it." You know, wow, we got a big chat here, guys. Thanks all of you for showing up today. I guess we're all here to talk about a little bit of Nolan. Sinclair Mock wrote, find it interesting that Nolan doesn't put Dolby Atmos tracks on his 4Ks because he doesn't want to give the digital presentation any advantages to the cinematic one. I have a lot of things I want to say about Nolan and how he does audio because he seems to be like the guy in charge of designing how his audio tracks are mixed, and he seems to always overwhelm the score over the dialogue track. Like he seems to purposely make the dialogue muffled and hard to understand. We saw this first with the Bane in The Dark Knight Rises, and then in Tenet, there's lines of dialogue that are almost impossible to hear without closed captioning on. You have to really read what he's saying, and he seems to love to do that. I don't know why, if that's like he's trying to create like some sort of realistic approach. Like I get it. The big one was when they're on the water and the score is overpowering, like they're on the speedboat and they're talking, and you just have such a hard time understanding what John David Washington is saying in those moments that I'm curious as to why he would choose to do that. But it's definitely a choice because it got sent to theaters like that. You know, he's been doing even that since Following, where he's had the score kind of overpower the scene. That's what's setting the mood over the dialogue. But he always seems to mix his audio tracks like that. And I'm not too sure what the reasoning is. I don't know if anyone's ever interviewed him about that, but I've always found it fascinating. And then Kevin A.L. wrote, "Do you think Nolan could direct horror?" I absolutely, actually, it's funny because word is that with Oppenheimer that it's very close to a horror film. Like, because I guess people are just shocked by the horrific nature of the atomic bomb. But I think he could direct horror. I don't know if he would ever go into full straightforward horror because it just horror films don't really get that kind of money invested in them. Like we had Nope last year, which is kind of a horror film, but it's also kind of a summer blockbuster. I think that's the closest we've ever gotten to like a high budgeted horror film that kind of plays in the epic field that like Nolan kind of likes to work with. I don't, can you imagine a horror film shot with IMAX cameras, like strictly IMAX cameras like Nolan likes to do? I couldn't imagine that. It would be cool to see. I would pay a lot of money to see it, but I couldn't imagine him actually going straight horror. He likes to blend a lot of genres as it is, but mostly he likes to blend sci-fi and action. So with like a real dramatic twist on that. But he adds very minimal horror elements. You could argue his first film at Following and Insomnia have horror elements in them too. John Doe Jugger, one of my all-time favorite movies is Interstellar. I watched that on your recommendation. You were right about it pulling heartstrings for parents. Yeah, that movie is a real tough watch, especially if you have kids. I couldn't even imagine just the amount of time, like, first of all, you're forced to leave your family. And you're doing it to save your family, really, because you're trying to save the entire planet. And you know that your kids will not have a future on this planet unless you go do this mission. And your kids, they don't appreciate it because they don't understand. And that's one crazy thing about that movie. And then I'll never get over the scene where he has to go on the water planet and they're only on there for a few minutes, and then he gets back on, and you get those scenes where he's going through the message with Casey Affleck and Jessica Chastain, and he's just sitting there and the tears running down his face because the amount of time that he's lost, you're not getting that time back with his kids. Completely gone forever in the blink of an eye. That's one thing with Nolan and time that I've just always absolutely loved. He does it better than anyone. His complex storytelling combined with the big blockbuster feel, and time has been a big part of that pretty much ever since Following. Honestly, he's been doing it since the very beginning. Rogue One 677 wrote 50-50 on Kevin L question. Want to Burn wrote, love Insomnia. Insomnia is one that I haven't fully come around on. I like Insomnia a lot, but it would be in my lower threshold of his films. I think it's just very straightforward, and it's a remake of a 1997 Norway film, which is actually pretty good too, but you don't get Al Pacino and Robin Williams, obviously, and Hilary Swank. It's just that feels just, it doesn't feel like a Nolan movie. It's weird. It feels very much like a director for hire movie, and everything else that Nolan has made has felt very Nolan. That's one big thing about him. His movies have a very distinct, he has a very auteur flavor to him, and his style is very distinct. You'll always know it's a Nolan movie. Kind of combines like action with James Bond. And Thomas Anderson wrote, what is the least favorite Nolan film? Also, hey y'all, what's happening today? So my least favorite is the original film he ever made in 1998, and Following, but that's not because of the story or anything. It's just because that movie was made on such a low budget that the look of that film feels very cheap, and because it was very cheap, you know, the acting doesn't live up to his future movies. But the real big disappointment for me has always been Dunkirk. I just never liked Dunkirk from the first time I saw it, and I was so excited to see it. It's just that the character development in that movie just doesn't work for me. I wish it did, but I just had no one to get attached to in that film. Mark Rylance was the closest we got. Tom Hardy does a good job in that movie. Everybody does a good job in that movie, acting wise. It's a beautiful looking movie. It's gorgeous. I saw that in IMAX. I mean, it's a great looking movie. It's just I have no attachment to any of the characters, that the movie becomes forgettable. And for such a serious subject, you know, they explore that also in Darkest Hour that came out the same year. It shouldn't feel like that. You should have more attachment to the characters, and unfortunately, it just let me down. So that's probably the one I would say is most disappointing. But Following would be my least favorite. Kevin L. wrote, Memento needs a 4K. I'm actually surprised Memento hasn't gotten a 4K yet, but I actually have. Where is it? This really nice steelbook for Memento, actually. I really do love this steelbook. I think it's a Canadian steelbook. It's out of print, but I really do love that. And Memento, yeah, I would love. I'm surprised we haven't gotten a 4K of that. It seems to be like people love Memento. I know people, that's their favorite of all of Nolan's films. And that one did not get a 4K is surprising. Following, I'm not surprised. Insomnia, that one's a little bit surprising because that is the first time we worked with Warner Brothers. Rogue One 677 wrote, Interstellar is amazing, emotional, intense. It's one hell of a ride, but in IMAX, it's absolutely stunning. It is. That's one thing I'm sure. I wish I would have saw that in theaters. It kills me that I didn't. Kevin, I'll agree with Memento should get a 4K. Hopefully one day. I agree. John Doe Juggler wrote, we're talking Interstellar, and I'm about in tears just thinking about it. That scene, it, it, it broke. I'm telling you, when the first time I saw that, it was like a gut punch watching that scene. I mean, I had tears running down my face just like Matthew McConaughey, and it got me again the next day because I watched that movie 2 days in a row. Shamrock Balls roll, don't fall out with me, but not a big Nolan fan. No problem, Shamrock. I get that. I understand that. I know your taste. Nolan isn't for everybody. I know that as well. Rogue 1677 wrote, and sniff, yeah, on John's question. Yeah, I understand that completely. Why not everybody loves Christopher Nolan. I've heard many people. I know actually one of my favorite critics, Sean Fennessy. He's not a big Nolan guy. He actually gets a lot of flack for that because Nolan is probably one of the most popular directors right now. And, you know, but he's not everybody. I think people kind of feel like the storytelling can be a little bit generic, which I disagree completely on. I think his storytelling, he's wrote a lot of his scripts with his brother Jonathan Nolan. I disagree on that, but I understand. I understand his taste is a big deal. The man doesn't have a single bad movie, wrote Nicker Walker. And I agree with that. Even if I don't like certain one of his movies, like I was disappointed by Dunkirk, but can you say the movie's bad? Absolutely not. I cannot say that movie is bad in any way. Crafted to perfection. I mean, that's one thing with Nolan. And Faith Williams, my wife, wrote, "Hey guys, I'm at work just saying hi. My co-host for Let's Talk Physical Media. And following it's mostly forgotten." Thomas Anderson wrote, and he wrote, "Hey Faith, hello. Yeah, that's one thing. I is Memento forgotten? I really hope not. That was such a big deal. I think that Nolan got the actually a Best Original Screenplay nomination for that movie. So that was kind of what put him on the map originally, because that was an independent release, and then he would end up getting the job working with WB, which he would work with all the way up until Tenet, and then Tenet was his last film with that because they had a breakup over the day and date thing because they were going to release that on streaming services and in theaters on the same day, and that really ruined their relationship, and that's why Universal is releasing Oppenheimer. And it's weird because WB is releasing Barbie same day as Oppenheimer. You wonder if that was a dig at Christopher Nolan. I don't think so, because the rumor is that WB does want Nolan back. Why wouldn't you? He's one of the best to ever do it. Secure Mock wrote, Nolan also supervised the 2001 Space Odyssey restoration that we have on 4K today. I would love to see him undertake a Napoleon film based on all the pre-production that Kubrick did years ago. Wow, I actually didn't know that he helped oversee that. That's one of the best 4Ks we have out there, actually, is that 2001 A Space Odyssey 4K. I'm actually excited for the Napoleon film that's coming out this year from Ridley Scott. But can you imagine if Christopher Nolan directed that? Although it does look epic in scale, and Ridley Scott does know how to tackle epics. We've seen it done numerous times, especially with Joaquin Phoenix and him in what's it called? Gladiator from 2000. Nico Walker wrote, I take it as a visual experience. It was a visual. I can't complain about my movie theater experience with Dunkirk. Rogue One 677 wrote, Dunkirk was amazing in its IMAX prologue when I saw it. Night, I'm gonna guess at night one at Rogue One, at Regal, at one IMAX 3D or 70. I don't know. I don't remember. That's another thing that and Faith Williams wrote, Hey Thomas. That's another thing with Nolan. A lot of his movies get printed onto film. Oppenheimer is being made a big deal because it's on printed on 70 millimeter IMAX film. And it was also shot in black and white and in color. So we got both that, kind of like what he did with Memento. And you can only watch this here in the United States in 20 theaters, which I find incredible. And actually, one of them is in New York City, which isn't too far from me. And I would have loved to had a chance to see it, well, just to experience that. There's not many movies because of my age that I've actually gotten to see on 70 millimeter film. I hear that, I know Tarantino still loves to have his movies shown on 70 millimeter or 35 millimeter at the New Beverly in Los Angeles. And one day, if I ever get enough coin together, I want to go out there and see some of those movies on film the way that they're supposed to, be seen. And that's one thing. Another thing about Nolan, he wants those movies to be seen in the best light possible. And on film, 70 millimeter IMAX print film is probably the best you're ever going to get. And this movie, being a historical epic that it is, for me, I'm sold. I just wish I could experience it in the proper way. What's it called? Walker wrote, Tenet is perfect. Wish more people loved it as much as me. Tenet is rising up my list as far as Christopher Nolan goes. I like it more and more each time I watch it. I actually feel like, I don't know if you guys get this feeling, but I get like a James Bond kind of feel from Tenet. It's, you get the suits, Robert Pattinson and John David Washington, the way they look in that movie, kind of searching for a MacGuffin, but then you put the sci-fi twist that Nolan likes to put on his movies, dealing with time going forward and time going backwards. I love all that. It's also just one of his best shot movies in general. The whole third act, the way that whole final sequence is shot is incredible. But then you get other stuff like just dealing with how ice and heat all work and when time's going forward and backwards. All that stuff, obviously it's a Nolan movie and people had a hard time with it. And I get that because it's a lot of that movie, especially like in other movies like Interstellar, Inception, you got to probably watch it once or twice to fully grasp what he wants you to understand. But I get it. I still love that movie though. Tenet is definitely rising up my list. Shamrock Balls. I didn't like Dunkirk. My grandfather was at Dunkirk. Really? That's very fascinating. That makes it. So you would think like you would have more of a connection to it, but I don't know about you, Shamrock, but I just had a hard time just connecting to the characters in it, and I thought that was that movie's biggest flaw. But it's still a good movie. Just I love the experiment with time in that. Nico Walker wrote, saw Interstellar and Inception off shrooms, came out a changed man both times. I can only imagine what those movies were like on shrooms. Interstellar is actually one that I would love to do experience that with. I'm sure it's a definitely a good charge to your system from what I understand about that stuff and everything like that. That would definitely be an experience. I've seen Inception after I've smoked a little bit of weed in my time, and yeah, again, like you come out of those movies and mind-bending movies, dealing with it with a little bit of substance. I'm sure it's definitely going to warp your mind. So I get that completely, Nico. Thomas Anderson wrote, 4K restored for 2001: A Space Odyssey was amazing, thanks to Nolan. I didn't know that he oversaw that. That's really crazy. I just assumed it makes sense as a WB property. It's just crazy to me as far as like Stanley Kubrick is another one, just like Christopher Nolan, where a lot of his movies have been released on 4K. We're only missing Eyes Wide Shut. We've talked about this when it comes to Kubrick, and hopefully we get Eyes Wide Shut very soon to complete the collection as far as this movie's on 4K. But knowing that Christopher Nolan oversaw the transfer, that just shows you how much he cares about the visuals. I remember it wasn't him, it was Matt Reeves as far as the Batman, but he sent directions to the projectors about how he wanted the movies to be projected to make sure you got the full experience that they intended for you to see it. I'm sure Christopher Nolan does things like that too. I mean, I'm just guessing, but I'm sure that he wants his movies to be seen the proper way, and he'll always send the directions for that. Sendor Macro, you can only get the following with the Criterion Collection. If it was released in a more mainstream way, it would be more noticed. Yeah, that's the only way to really see it. And you have to, if you want to rent it, you have to pay, I think, $3.99, whether it be through Amazon or Apple. And I saw something recently. I don't remember what the company was that is supposedly releasing another Blu-ray edition of Following. The way it's shot, it definitely doesn't warrant a 4K release. Not that I wouldn't buy it on 4K, because it definitely could do a little bit more work to it, but it was just shot so low budget. The audio isn't the greatest on it, but the story, man, the third act of that movie, how they wrap it up, it's very similar to Memento, but it's very satisfying. It just shows you that he had the mind at the time to tell stories in a different way in comparison to how, especially now that he's more mainstream. But even back then, when he was just a little independent director, he was still able to do it. And then Nico Walker wrote, I've seen 4.5K films, all genres, almost every country, but the man really is top 3 directors working today. Absolutely. He's in my top 5 all time. I've just always enjoyed his work. And, obviously the connection for me started with Batman just because I'm a huge Batman fan. And that's what really led me into his movies. And the fact is that Batman Begins and The Dark Knight aren't my favorite from him. So Batman really opened the door for me to one of my favorite directors. It's the same thing with Tim Burton. If it wasn't for 1989's Batman, I probably wouldn't have gone back and found movies like Beetlejuice or Big Fish, Ed Wood. But Batman got me in the door is the best way to put it. Who played the better Rachel Dawes? Kevin L. wrote. I actually have always felt like Katie Holmes did. I don't know why she gets a lot of flack. Is it the Dawson's Creek Tom Cruise connection? But I've always felt like she's a pretty decent actor. Now, Maggie Gyllenhaal, you can argue in The Dark Knight, is a better actor, but I actually find the actor switch to be a little bit distracting. Maggie Gyllenhaal does a good enough job, but you got to admit that the Katie Holmes character of Rachel does not feel the same as the Maggie Gyllenhaal Rachel. Katie Holmes, she's strong, but Maggie Gyllenhaal almost feels a little bit, I don't want to say arrogant, but definitely a little bit cockier than how Katie Holmes felt. She has a little bit more innocence to her with Katie Holmes, and that's kind of just probably their difference in acting style. But I would have really preferred if Katie Holmes would have stayed. In my personal opinion, though, that's it, though. John Doe Juggler, I have 10 on DVD. That's the proper way to watch it for the first time, right? I mean, hey, listen, as long as you're watching it, I mean, the 4K is beautiful of it, but, just seeing the movie is important because I think it's a great movie in general. Even, if you get around the technicals, it's a beautiful looking movie, but I just champion watching the movies. It doesn't matter which way, just, you got to see it. And Tenet is one of those movies that it might be confusing the first time, but after 2 or 3 watches, you'll understand it, and then you'll learn to appreciate it a little bit more. And then obviously you'll get more of an appreciation, I think, for Robert Pattinson. He kind of gets some flack a little bit, but I really think that the guy is a great actor. Pull back on the Twilight stuff. He's still a great actor. If you've seen movies like The Lighthouse too, he's great in that. Shamrock Balls. What about The Dark Knight Rises? That's a mess of a movie. Yeah, I appreciate that movie more as time has gone on, just because I do think that it's not the worst movie. It's just a real mixed bag of a movie, and you have to defy more belief. Like you got to take yourself just completely out of it. Once he gets his back broken by Bane, that's it. You know, the city gets completely cut off from the rest of the world. Nobody can get in, nobody can get out. That's it. The city, you know, you got people locked in caves for 3 months, and they don't all grow beards that look disheveled when they come out of it, and then somehow Bruce Wayne slash Batman gets himself back in the city when nobody else can. I get it. He's got more money than everyone, but he gets back in completely unscathed and untraced. Forget that his back was just broken. And he is only the second person to ever climb out of this prison. They believe that no one can get out of this prison. They're so confident, but this guy gets out within a few months. Again, I know he's Batman, so of course he can. But all that stuff is just so hard to believe. But then once we get back in the city, and if you can just defy that belief, and then you get back into the story, I think it does close out the whole Dark Knight trilogy okay. Um, you know, most movies have a hard time sticking the landing when it comes to third films and their trilogies. It's very rare that the third film can live up to the quality of the first two films. Pretty much every trilogy has this problem. It's very rare you get a Lord of the Rings where it really each film gets better and better. And for the most part, usually the first film is the best. You get a little bit of a downer with the second film, and then the third film is usually hit or miss. But the Lord of the Rings is one of those trilogies where I think it gets better each and every single time as far as film order goes, because Return of the King is definitely the best in my opinion as far as that goes. But The Dark Knight Rises suffers from a lot of problems that a lot of trilogies suffer from. Also, it doesn't help that Heath Ledger passed away, and they rushed the Aaron Eckhart Two Face storyline to the Dark Knight, which would have been better served in the Dark Knight Rises trilogy. I mean, in the Dark Knight Rises, but Christopher Nolan wasn't sure if he was coming back for the Dark Knight Rises. I don't know actually how they convinced him to come back, but I remember I remember reading about that, like, oh, is he going to come back? And then he eventually does, which I think is good, but unfortunately, it just doesn't feel the same as the other two movies. Kevin L wrote, "How much do you think Oppenheimer will make opening weekend? Will it beat Barbie?" So right now, I think Oppenheimer is tracking for about $40 million, while Barbie is tracking for 80 million. And Barbie is surprising because I didn't expect that movie. And I'm reading about the box office right now, and what I just read actually before we went live is that Mission Impossible looks like it's going to make $78 million since it's opening on Wednesday. And I really am shocked at that. I actually expected to get Top Gun Maverick numbers, but I guess Tom Cruise doesn't sell Mission Impossible as well as Top Gun does. Maybe Top Gun really did capture lightning in a bottle, but I thought that I thought that Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 was going to make more money, and that makes me a little bit more concerned for next week with Oppenheimer and Barbie. But people are really excited. They're going to be doing the double. You know, I'm not doing the double in the same sense as everybody else. I'm not doing back to back, but I'm seeing Oppenheimer Thursday night at 10 o'clock at night after I get out of work. And then me and Faith are going back on Friday at about noon, I think. And we're seeing Barbie. So we're kind of doing the double. We're seeing both movies, but we're going to sleep in between. We got two dogs, so we can't be out of the house for that long. But I'm excited. But yeah, Oppenheimer is definitely not going to draw in the four quadrant crowd like Barbie is. Barbie, you can bring in kids. Oppenheimer is a 3 hour, 7 minute epic rated R film, only his second rated R film since Insomnia, too. So I don't know. I mean, I'm hoping that we get the crowds out. But Nolan's movies are not the biggest box office draws, except for The Dark Knight, and then obviously The Dark Knight Rises, and an Inception in there. But everything after that, they're critically acclaimed, but they're not the most money making films. And I think Oppenheimer is going to be probably the third when it comes to Mission Impossible, Barbie, and Oppenheimer. I hope that Oppenheimer makes more money because I want them to keep giving Christopher Nolan as much money as he wants to keep making his movies. But unfortunately, that the box office has to warrant that. So we'll see what happens. My guess, though, is it will come in around that $40 million mark because most people are going to choose Barbie if they're choosing one. But if they're choosing both, I hope they do. Let's see who's next. Let's see. Secular Monk wrote, "We are missing Eyes Wide Shut, Lolita, Barry Lyndon from Kubrick on 4K. You're right. We are missing Barry Lyndon. I have Barry Lyndon on Criterion, and that isn't on 4K. I thought Lolita had a 4K. I guess I'm wrong on that. I just don't know. What do I have on look for Lolita? I have all of his movies except for Spartacus. That's the only one I don't own, but I just don't go back to Spartacus as much. I guess I was wrong about that. Forgot about Barry Lyndon not being on 4K though. I have the Blu-ray, and it's a good looking Blu-ray from Criterion. Not my favorite of Kubrick's films. Have you guys ever seen Barry Lyndon? It gives you a little bit of it's probably it probably doesn't crack my top five Kubrick if I'm being honest. Kevin L wrote favorite opening scene in a Nolan movie. See, that's a little tough because once we got to like the Dark Knight, he really started to like trying to outdo himself, and then they would always show the opening scenes in IMAX theaters like before certain films. I actually remember when I went and saw Rise of Skywalker. We saw it in IMAX, and the best part of that whole movie wasn't Rise of Skywalker. It was seeing Tenet, the opening of Tenet when they're at like that I don't know. I guess what would you call that? Like an orchestra? I don't know what the hell they're at. But this big scene happens in there where that's when we first start to see the time going as the bullet goes back into the gun. That one's great. But the best one is probably The Dark Knight Rises. That's probably his best opening scene. I love what he did with the plane and all that stuff done practically. It looks incredible on your screen. Even outdoes what he did in The Dark Knight with the heist scene, which is basically an homage to Heat, but I think he nailed it with The Dark Knight Rises, in my opinion. That's probably his best opening scene in any of his films, at least in my opinion. Robusta wrote, Tenet needed a better lead. John David Washington was horrible. I thought he was serviceable. I do know what you're saying, though. John David Washington, I expected a little bit more out of him. Like, we kind of started to get like a little bit of a hype train going for him, and he's kind of fallen off lately. But after Black Klansman, and I thought he was good in Black Klansman, but he's never really felt like he's had like the it factor, even with Malcolm and Marie with him and Zendaya that came out a couple years ago. He was good in that. Like, but that's all I've ever felt about him is that he's just really good. Robert Pattinson, though, was great in Tenet, but if you're going to compare him, I thought that definitely Robert Pattinson did a better job than John David Washington. I'm hoping for more from John David Washington because I do like him, but yeah, he definitely seems to be missing the it factor for sure. He kind of feels a little bland at points, like nothing like horrible, but definitely not like what you would expect from a leading man. I agree with what you're saying. Kevin Elro, would you like to see Kevin Elro, would you like to see Nolan direct an MCU movie? Only if they're not going to have any hands-on approach to it. If they let Nolan make the movie he wants to make, absolutely, like he did with Batman, where they're like, okay, do your thing. If I would love to see him tackle that. I don't know what hero I would want to see him tackle. My mind went right to Iron Man, but that's just because of the Batman tie-in. But I would love to see him tackle something in the MCU, and that might be the energy that the MCU needs to like rejuvenate its properties right now because they're really struggling. They oversaturated that market, and now people are kind of pushing back on that. So yeah, I mean, I would love to see it. You know, obviously he doesn't really use CGI. He's been promoting with Oppenheimer. There's no CGI shots at all in the movie, so that's something that I really do appreciate. I want practical effects always over physical effect. I mean, over CGI and digital effects. So I'm pretty happy with that. I hope that, you know, maybe one day, but I don't know. I feel like he's probably had enough of superheroes. He did his trilogy of superhero movies, so I doubt we'll ever get it. But if we do, I'm on board for it. I would definitely appreciate it. But again, I don't know who I'd want him to do. Secular Monk wrote, Nolan could never work with Feige, the MCU. All of his films are things he creates. Yeah, that's kind of like what I'm saying. I don't know if Feige would probably have to take a more hands-off approach, and I don't know if Kevin Feige's into doing that. You know, really, he's the mastermind of the entire MCU, and then he brings in directors who get to add their certain flair to it, but they still have to work within the MCU bubble. You still have to hit certain story points. They still have to be connected, and you know, I don't know if Nolan is into doing that, and I don't think he would ever want to. Rogue One 677 wrote, Dark Knight Rises is definitely, in my opinion, the weakest in the trilogy, but still amazing. Robusta, and then he wrote to Robusta, question really, but John was amazing in the role, though. My favorite role from him is Black Klansman. Yeah, that's definitely John David Washington's best performances in Black Klansman. That, you know, Spike Lee really knew how to use him best. That movie is also really good. It kind of came and went. I think people forget that Spike Lee even made Black Klansman, but that's a great movie. Kevin Elrell, top 3 performances in a Nolan movie. First one is Matthew McConaughey in Interstellar. I think that came out at the perfect time, right around the reconnaissance. Everything was working for him. You had True Detective season one, Mud, everything with the Lincoln Lawyer. He was really firing all cylinders, and I think it peaked with Interstellar. So for me, I think that's the best performance ever in a Nolan movie. You could argue that Al Pacino was really good in Insomnia. I think that's a really good performance as well. Heath Ledger, the Joker, obviously, that's one of the best performances. He stole that movie from everybody. Won an Academy Award. I think that might be the only Academy Award anyone's ever won for acting in any Nolan movie. What else do we got? Guy Pearce in Memento is really good. I'm not usually a big Guy Pearce fan. There's really just that movie and Iron Man 3, really, where I've ever really thought, okay, you know what, Guy Pearce. Oh no, I'm sorry. He's really good in LA Confidential, though. That's another good Guy Pearce performance. But yeah, I really love him in Memento. Secular Monk wrote, Barry Lyndon is a slow Louis, not my favorite Kubrick films. I do like the use of natural lighting in the scenes and the fact that worked with NASA to create special lenses for the camera. Yes, the natural lighting is really what sold me on actually when the first time I saw it was everyone was talking about, like when I was just reading articles about movies, they were talking about how Barry Lyndon, the way it was lit was spectacular and it looks beautiful. And that's one thing why it coming to 4K would be definitely a treat. I'm curious to see how much of an upgrade would be. I mean, that's something I can definitely see Criterion releasing on 4K eventually, like because they did that with the Red Shoes, where that's such a movie that it's mostly known for its cinematography over its actual story. Same thing kind of with Barry Lyndon, like the movie itself, it's not as popular, but people always talk about the cinematography and bringing to something that's beautifully shot. That's why I really want the Jesse James movie, the Brad Pitt, what's that movie called? The Murder of Jesse James by the Coward Robert Ford. That's a movie I would love on 4K just because of how beautifully shot that is by Roger Deakins. And speaking of Roger Deakins, he's worked a lot with Nolan as far as like having some of his movies shot. So that's something that I would definitely love. And then let's see. Shamrock Balls wrote, "Who are your top three directors, John?" So my number one, you guys know, is Quentin Tarantino. My number two is Martin Scorsese, and for a while it was just Martin Scorsese, and then I would have Tarantino at number two. I just always thought that Martin Scorsese, his body of work was so big. He started in the 1970s. He's still making movies now. We got Killers of the Flower Moon coming out in October on both Apple TV and in theaters, and it looks beautiful. And we had The Irishman recently, so I was like, the guy's body of work is so big. Tarantino didn't really hit the scene until 1992, and he's retiring pretty soon. So small body of work, but you can't. Stanley Kubrick's the same way. He would only have a movie come out every few years, but he worked for a long time also, but he didn't like oversaturate his filmography. Like guys like Steven Spielberg would have movies come out every couple of years, Scorsese every couple of years, and they were all great. So it's always hard for me to like separate that, but Tarantino would still be my number one. Scorsese would be my number two. And then I think Spike Lee has risen up to my number three. Once I really started watching all of his movies and going back to everything, and movies like The 25th Hour, 25th Hour, Malcolm X, Do the Right Thing are some of my favorite movies ever. And then all those movies are very topical. And then you get other movies from him like Clockers, which are just great movies that nobody seems to really talk about. We were just talking about Black Klansman. That's a great movie. I really love Black Klansman as far as recent movies. The Five Bloods that came out a few years ago, that was a fantastic movie. Everyone thought that Damien Lindau was going to get an Oscar nomination for that, and he should have, but of course, that's not how things go. So those are my top three right now. Honorable mentions, though, I mean, like Kubrick is one of my favorites ever. I always thought that Tony Scott was a very underrated director. He's just one of my favorite directors. Like, I actually probably prefer Tony Scott over Ridley Scott just because of his style of movie really fits in with me. I just rewatched Days of Thunder the other day because I just absolutely love that movie. And then the 17-year-old Blu-ray collector wrote, following up on the MCU question, well, Quentin Tarantino did once ask to direct an Iron Man film from back then. Can you imagine Tarantino directing Iron Man? I guess doesn't really feel like a Tarantino type of movie, honestly. I thought he would probably want something a little bit more grounded, but you never know with him. I know he's a big Star Trek fan, and there was always those rumors he was going to direct a Star Trek movie, especially a couple of years ago. Because that franchise has kind of tapered off a little bit as well. It started out really hot. The remake series that came out a couple of years ago, started by J.J. Abrams. And then there was the rumors that Tarantino was going to come around and do his own film. And I would have actually liked to see that. Not the biggest Star Trek fan, and it's really just because I haven't seen enough of it. It's not because of the quality or anything. But Tarantino would have got me in the theaters day one just because that's my guy. So what's it called? Road Circular Mock Road. Have you seen any of Akira Kurosawa's work? He's one of my top 5 directors of all time. Yeah, I have actually. I have Seven Samurai on the Criterion Collection, and I've seen Yojimbo. But that's really it. Only a few of his films I've seen. I have an appreciation more for him than I actually do have a love for him. But I do have to do more of a deep dive into some of his later films that he did in like the late in the 70s. So I definitely don't think I've seen enough Kurosawa, and that's actually a big kind of blank spot in my filmography that I'm a little bit embarrassed about because I do want to catch up a little bit more on him. Same thing like with Bergman and Jean-Luc Godard. There's some of those classic directors that influenced a lot of the more modern directors. I've only seen a handful of their films, but I've never gone in and seen all their films. And I would like to one day do like a big deep dive, especially the Kurosawa, because he really is a huge influence on the action genre, especially with Seven Samurai, which The Magnificent Seven is a remake of The Seven Samurai. And funny enough, when he saw it, I think Kurosawa said, "Yeah, I love Magnificent Seven because it was my movie." So that's one I definitely have to see more of. Again, I'm a little bit embarrassed I haven't seen more Kurosawa stuff. Have you seen every Nolan in 4DX? No, I actually 4DX that's what's it called? That's Showtime Cinemas, right? Like we have a theater around here. It's a Showtime thing. Then that's Island 16. It's called over by us. And I've only seen a couple movies in 4DX in my entire life. Really, I try and go to IMAX. I live closer to an AMC, and the Regal by me isn't the nicest, but the AMC theater is really nice. And you get, we have Dolby Cinemas and we also have IMAX. So really, I'll go to either or. I try to see everything in Dolby. I'm going to see Oppenheimer in IMAX because it's being promoted, but the IMAX theater by me is also they just got a new projector, so it should be a little bit better than it used to be, but it just really was about the size. It wasn't the nicest lens on that IMAX projector. So I've only seen a couple movies in 4DX, but not many. I don't think I've seen any. Actually, that's not true. I did see the Dark Knight on its re-release at Island 16s in 4DX, but that was the only time I ever saw it. I actually thought the projector was a little what's it called? A little dark in my opinion. The 17-year-old Blu-ray career. No joke, folks. John Doe Juggalo wrote, which Nolan movie would you be most excited to get along the lines of a boutique label box release? I would actually, selfishly, I would like Inception. Just because I would love to see all the bells and whistles like from like Criterion or Arrow put on there with the extras, the brand new 4K scan. Because I do think some of these do need some new 4K scans. They said they came out in 2018, but Memento would probably be the definitive one to have on the Criterion collection in 4K because it's an independent film, so WB doesn't have the rights to it unless they bought the rights after it. So that's one that I would and that also could fit into like Arrow or even Shout Factory, but that's one since we don't have it on 4K yet, independently owned. It's a small independent film. It feels a little bit different than any other of Nolan's films because it feels probably closer to Insomnia than anything, but it does kind of feel like that stopgap between Following and Insomnia, and it feels nothing like the Dark Knight movies. The Dark Knight movies kind of have a similar tone to Inception and The Prestige because that's what he was working with at the time. WB, IMAX cameras, where Following does feel like his baby. And that one I think would absolutely work perfectly on a boutique label release, in my opinion, at least. So that's the one I think that would be the most likely to happen. But you never know. What's it called? The 70-year-old wrote Kevin L. Havas. Yeah, I figured that something got cut off there, but still read it. Kevin L. wrote, would love to see a movie in 4DX, but the closest is 300 miles from me, so probably not worth the drive. Definitely not worth the drive, in my opinion, Kevin. If I don't know how close you are to Adobe Theater, like I don't know if you live close to an AMC or anything like that, but to me, Dolby Theaters is, if you're going to be going to a Prime Theater, that's the ultimate Prime Theater, and then behind that is IMAX, and then behind that is 4DX. As far as like the main theaters go, I assume you're probably like me, and you don't live close to like the Alamo draft houses that you hear about. Like I don't live in LA, and I live close to the city, but I would have to take the train into New York City, and that's about an hour and 20. So the theaters by me, it's really I have my choices of Regal, Showtime Cinemas, or or Showcase Cinemas or AMC. And then I got two really small theaters by me that actually I used to go to when I was a kid growing up. Family owned local theaters, small theaters with like 100 seats or less. But if you're going to be looking for prime theaters, I think that Dolby is absolutely the way to go. Shamrock, the 17-year-old Blu-ray collector. Shamrock Balls. I love the original Star Trek movies. Shamrock, I actually am going to probably dive into those pretty soon because I have the 4Ks. I bought them last Prime Day and I still haven't watched them except for the motion picture. And I didn't love Star Trek, the motion picture. What was that, 1979? I found it to be a little bit of a slodge to get through. I was pretty bored. Beautiful looking 4K, but I really watched that because I wanted to watch The Wrath of Kong, and for some reason I wanted to watch that one first. And I've seen Wrath of Kong, and I like that movie, and I wanted to watch it on 4K, but I was so turned off by Star Trek: The Motion Picture just because of the pacing of it. I feel like that's more of a movie though for the fans of the series. And I'm just not a fan of the series. Again, not because of the quality of the series. It's just because I haven't seen it. And I just think it's too much for me to dive into. I really think I would be a Star Trek fan if I had the time. Because honestly, it's more highbrow, I guess is the way to put it. A little bit more of like a thinking man's kind of show. And I definitely would like to check that out, especially with sci-fi stuff like that. Kevin Elro, I would love Kino 4K for Insomnia. Yeah, they're another one that would be great, honestly. Kino feels like they would release Following on 4K, if that makes sense, because they do such a good job of cleaning up black and white films. And Following, when I watched it this week, it's a Criterion scan. It's a rough Blu-ray release, and it's no one's fault but the source material. But I think Kino does a good job cleaning up rough source material that I think they would do a fantastic job with you said Insomnia. What am I thinking? But I got thrown off and thought Following. But Insomnia would be another one that needs a 4K release. It's really weird that we're only missing a couple movies of his on 4K and we haven't gotten them yet. Insomnia, I don't understand because WB has the rights to it. So they could easily release that on 4K. What are they doing over there? But anyway, so I don't know why we haven't gotten Insomnia on 4K. I think it will come eventually, right? It has to. It's a pretty popular movie, at least, and it made money at the time. I guess it's kind of forgotten. A lot of people probably don't even realize Nolan directed that movie unless you're a Nolan fan. Rogue 1677 wrote Inception, I think, got a suitcase Blu-ray box set on hold on BRB. Did it? I don't even know about that. I would love to know about that because I have the Inception 4K. I had the Blu-ray release before that, but they're pretty standard. And honestly, I pre-ordered the Inception 4K, and a lot of his movies, they don't even get the slip covers. They feel very bare bones, very old 4Ks. I did see, I don't know how true it is. I don't know if they got an official announcement, but I saw a steelbook for Inception and Interstellar coming out on 4K in September. I could be wrong on that. Could have just been a fake steelbook, but I do want to see that. And then Secular Mount wrote, I think it would be interesting for Nolan to direct a comedy just to see what he can do. He always just seems like such a serious guy. I don't know how he would do a comedy. I would love to do it. Even a lot of his movies don't really have comedy in them. A couple jokes here and there in some of the Batman movies, but really, Interstellar, Inception, especially Tenet and Dunkirk, they're all told very straight-faced. I don't know if he could do comedy. He would need to work with a script writer or something who knows comedy. Jonathan Nolan doesn't seem like that too, because if you've seen Westworld, not many jokes in that either. So I don't know. He would need to work with somebody who's good at writing comedy. I don't know if he could do it. I would love to see it, but I don't know if he could do it. John Doe Juggler wrote, either of those would be great releases. Thanks, buddy. I really do think that they would be, but who knows if we're going to get them. Kevin wrote, I have an IMAX at my AMC, but no Dolby. They kind of just speaking of that, they redid my theater by me recently. So maybe if they ever redo your theater, it looks like they're trying to redo some of them. If they ever do, maybe they'll add a Dolby theater in. That's what they did with the theater by my house a few years ago. That's how we got the Dolby theater because we did just have IMAX before that. The 17-year-old Blu-ray collector of my theater has a premium large format. So that's probably something similar. It depends on the theater. Each theater has their own their big showpiece theater that they want to show off. I remember a couple of years ago, especially the big deal was obviously getting those reclining seats. This is something theaters have been doing forever. Back in the day, Technicolor was a huge theater, Panavision. These are all things, and now it's Dolby Vision, Dolby Audio. That's what gets you in the theaters, Dolby Cinemas, IMAX, just to make it feel special. I just always felt like Dolby Cinemas was always the best. IMAX is cool because you get the whole entire front wall, top to bottom, filled up. Dolby doesn't have that. Dolby just has it looks like a 4K on the screen, whereas in IMAX, it doesn't hit the deep blacks like the Cinemas does. And that's why I think that's still the best. Secular Monk wrote, did you pick up any Criterions from Barnes& and Noble half price sale this month? I recently got Bergman Cinema. I'm working on a blind spot myself. Literally, I was looking at that last night. 39 films. I want that so bad. Especially since I've been waiting to buy some of his films, like The Seventh Seal just came to 4K, and Persona is a masterpiece, and I think that'll get a 4K release also. So I'm like, I just don't have the money right now, but I really would have wanted that Bergman collection. It is beautiful. Like they structured it like I think there's a huge book in there, and they structured it like a film festival. That's one thing I really, really wanted. I did grab some stuff. I grabbed Jean-Luc Godard's Breathless. I got After Hours. I got a couple. What's it called? Coming at the end of the month. And that's really it. I really wanted to buy. I'm still on the fence if I'm going to do it. Mulholland Drive. I have the Blu-ray, and I want to upgrade the 4K. I'm on the fence though. I got to see how money works out at the end of the month because I do want to upgrade my Blu-ray to the 4K and just actually do a comparison video of it because Mulholland Drive is one of my favorite movies and Uncut Gems on 4K. So I got a couple things. Money's a little bit tight, but man, I'm jealous that you got that Berkman collection. And then John Doe Juggler wrote, I found a sealed Kino Blu-ray at a thrift store for $2. Are you serious? What movie did you have that it was sealed for $2? Somebody didn't realize what they had because Kino is always pretty damn expensive, no matter what it is. And even on their old Blu-ray releases, I have a couple of their older Blu-ray releases. Like my Mississippi Burning is a Kino Lorber Blu-ray, which I'm surprised hasn't come to 4K yet. Kevin L wrote, I would love Nolan to direct a black and white noir film. He kind of did with Following. That is almost a pretty much black and white noir film. And a lot of his movies kind of dabble in that in the sense like, I mean, definitely Memento is kind of a noir film, and Inception has like neo-noir elements to it because the story just keeps unfolding in a certain way. But a straightforward black and white, I would love him to do that. I think one day I feel like that's something we would get that before we ever got a comedy or horror film because he clearly loves noir. I would love him to do another straightforward noir film. We don't get much of those anymore. We had the one earlier this year with Liam Neeson, and that was a kind of a straightforward, but we don't get that anymore. They got to have more modern twists on it. But noir is still one of the best genres to ever come around. The Third Man is one of the greatest movies ever made. Absolutely love that movie. Shamrock Balls wrote, I agree about the first Star Trek, LOL. It's a bit slow, but the others are fun. So you're saying I should definitely continue with my watch through eventually. That's something I think I'll probably review on the channel as all of those. But yeah, the first one, it was tough. They definitely got it right with once they got to Wrath of Kong, and I haven't seen any of them after Wrath of Kong, so that's a blank spot for me also. So eventually, I own them. I'll eventually watch them. I feel like I feel bad missing that. Rogue 1677 I'll send you a picture on Instagram. It's that suitcase Blu-ray I was talking about. It was on WB Online Executive exclusive. Thanks for sending me that. I'm gonna check that out because I love it. Is it in like the briefcase, like the silver briefcase in the movie? I imagine off the top of my head, what it looks like. Thanks for sending me that. I can't wait to check that out. Thanks, Rogue One. The 17-year-old Blu-ray collector. Heck, Barbie and Oppenheimer is going to be in large format on the same day, literally. I don't know how they're doing that, actually. It's crazy. I was looking because I bought my tickets for Barbie and I bought my tickets for Oppenheimer. So Oppenheimer has the exclusive where they get to be in IMAX format, no Mission Impossible in IMAX format, no Barbie in IMAX format, starting next Thursday night. Mission Impossible right now has the premium theaters. Any premium theater that you can imagine right now up until next Thursday is going to be Mission Impossible. Then Barbie is going to be splitting Dolby Cinema time with Mission Impossible, and Oppenheimer will be exclusively on IMAX, no Dolby format, at least in New York. And from what I can see, from what I'm checking up, that's pretty much the way they're going. IMAX is exclusive with Oppenheimer, I think, for 12 days. So Mission Impossible, depending on how much money it's made, it's losing a lot of premium screens after this week. And I really think that the proper way to see Mission Impossible is on a premium screen, mainly Adobe screen. So if you want to see it, you really have to see it on that screen by next Thursday before really Barbie takes it up. Like I looked at it, Barbie has most of the Adobe screens next week, and then Mission Impossible has like one time I think in the late afternoon, and then Barbie has the late night. So that's one thing. All these movies in theaters at the same time are jockeying for the same exact marketplace. It's definitely going to hurt somebody, and I just really hope it's not Oppenheimer's, in my opinion. I mean, they're out there all promoting all three movies together, which is cool. Well, now nobody is with the strike. Uh, oh wow. So John Doe Juggalo wrote the Blu-ray I found was Macho Callahan. I actually have never seen that movie, John Doe Juggalo. Rogue One 677 wrote, yeah, it's sold out release, unfortunately. Yeah, it probably came out a few years ago. And he also wrote, I have a big D at my local AMC theater and 3D, and IMAX screen is all the way in Boise, and I live in Idaho. Yeah, that's the thing is a lot of, especially in the middle of this country here in the United States. I can't speak on any other countries, but the middle of this country, those premium theaters are really spread out. Like I live on Long Island, so we don't really have too many premium theaters, but it's weird actually how they do it. Like the Regal, the AMC, and the Showcase Cinemas are all close to each other, but it's like north to south. So I live on the North Shore and I live close to the AMC, but they're all like within a weird range of each other. It's strange how they did that. And then if you don't go to those theaters, you have to go all the way out even further. So, and then the city, of course, gets lucky and has all the premium theaters that we don't get out here. But in the middle of this country, yeah, all the premium theaters are very spread out. I know all about like how that is, and I also know that you guys have like, as far as like broadband internet, I know that's spread out as well. Cell coverage. The middle of the country kind of does get screwed over when it comes to pretty much everything as far as premium stuff goes. But everywhere in this country is set up a little bit differently. What's it called? John Doe Juggalo just wrote. I've not seen the movie either, but Kino Lorber and Sealed, yeah, you can't beat that. I couldn't pass it up. Figured I'd expand my horizon a bit. Yeah, honestly, yeah, it's like kind of like the old days. You grab a movie from Blockbuster, you don't know what it is. Hell, you might love it. You never know. And then if you do love it, you stole it for $2. Kino Lorber release, it's going to be at least a high quality disc. So that I have that you couldn't pass $2. I would have got it too. That's a sweet deal. I actually that's how I got my Batman versus Superman 4K, but I have the one without the IMAX scene. So unfortunately, mine is not the greatest of Batman versus Superman 4Ks. John Doe, so and then we're up to Mr. Secular Mongra. What films would you like to see in Columbia Classics Volume 4? Well, I got to try and off the top of my head, there's Sony films, right? Anything that was released in the Columbia Classics, because Part 3 was very disappointing for me. There was only a couple movies in there that I would have liked. Let me see what films are Columbia films. Let me look these up so that I can at least know what films were released by them off. Columbia Pictures Films. Okay, let's see. Oh, The Magnificent Seven. We already have that on 4K. Once Upon a lot of these movies we already have released on 4K. That's kind of tough. Oh, Man on Fire. A lot of these movies are already. I think that's actually probably why Columbia Classics Volume 3 was actually kind of as weak as it was. Is we got all the best stuff. They put Gandhi and Lawrence Arabia on their first run through. That's the pretty surprising to me because like you could have spread that out. Taxi Driver on its second run through, The Social Network on its third run through. It's a little tough. Rogue One 677 wrote the Emoji Movie is in the volume 4. Nah, it's a joke. Nah, something I've never seen in 4K. I don't think anyone wants Emoji Movie in 4K. Is it on 4K? I'm in the John Doe Juggler. I'm in the South. Nothing premium in terms of service and theaters, but $5.55 for run movies is lit. Yeah, that's one thing, John Doe Juggler. You're definitely stealing is that price because, like I was saying, even like the small theaters by me, they still have like a minimum ticket price of about $12 just because it's New York. So everything costs more money over here. I haven't had a movie theater cost $5.50 probably in my lifetime because I remember when I was in high school going to Movie Land in Coram over here, small theater. It's in a shopping center and everything. $8 was what it cost. That's when I was in high school. So that's pre-2010. So things have changed. Rogue One 677. My theater doesn't open until 10 a.m. Actually, movie theaters around here now, at least by me, don't really. The earliest screenings now are like noon. and that's rare. But that's only for like big time movies. Like I noticed, like this week with Mission Impossible, Oppenheimer, and Barbie next week. Other than that, if like there's nothing big in theaters, nothing that's going to draw a crowd, they won't have their earliest showtime be until about 3 p.m. So it's actually kind of it's weird how movie that all kind of changed with the pandemic because I used to love going to movie theaters like 9, 10 in the morning. I was honestly it was a treat. Nobody was there. A lot of theaters had coffee at the time. I'm a big coffee drinker. I used to just love grabbing a cup of coffee, sitting down and watching a movie to start my day. Perfect way. And that's kind of gone by me. It's cool that at least you get 10 o'clock because I don't get that at all. Matt Mead wrote, I just picked up Thelma and Louise. Chilly Scenes of Winter and After Hours. Oh, great 4Ks. I haven't seen Chilly Scenes of Winter. I'm curious, Matt. Comment. Let me know after you watch that if that's any good. I do want to watch that. And the 17-year-old Blu-ray collector wrote, good choices, Matt. Yeah, those are really good choices. After Hours, that 4K is phenomenal. I love it. And Thelma and Louise is still my number one 4K of this year. So you definitely got to check it out. Rogue One 677. What is the worst for 4K you have? So much you want to burn it. I actually have a couple of 4Ks that I absolutely hate. Planes, Trains, and Automobiles is I hate it. Terminator 2 on 4K. It's like I don't want to burn them because I actually bought the Terminator 2 4K Steelbook with the same exact scan that I absolutely hate just because I'm such a fan of the movie. I had to own it, and I hate that 4K so much with a passion. The Heat 4K is really bad, even though you guys know Matt. He's been begging me like he's gonna watch that on. He's like, I don't know, is it that bad? I heard it's not that bad. That one's pretty damn awful. I hate that 4K so much, but for me, it's Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. That's the only 4K that's actually offended me. is that movie. So that was the big one. And then let's see, Matt Mead wrote Terminator 2. Yep, Planes, Trains. Yeah, so you guys agree. Planes, Trains, and Rogue One 677 wrote Pirates of the Caribbean last year. It's so bad. I throw it out, and even the code. Wow. So it's funny you said that. So I'm in the mood to watch Pirates of the Caribbean. You know, it feels like a summer thing. I like the original trilogy. I really wish we would get them all on 4K, but as long as Disney doesn't ruin them, like apparently they did with Pirates of the Caribbean, it really bothers me that those movies had such bad scans. Those aren't that old. They would transfer to 4K perfectly. How did they screw that up? I just have no idea how you messed up the Pirates of the Caribbean 4Ks. Those are some of the most popular films over the last 25 years. Jack Sparrow has like crossed over into everything. It doesn't make sense that you screw up that 4K. It's like they don't want to make money sometimes because like easily if you put out a good 4K, people would love that. And then, oh, here we go. Scandal Monk wrote, my ideal set for Columbia would be classic volume. It would include Tootsie. That would be a good one. Awakenings, Easy Rider, and On the Waterfront. Now, I think that a lot of those have releases. Tootsie and On the Waterfront, maybe even Easy Rider are in Criterion right now, which is why I think we probably haven't gotten those on 4K yet. Awakenings is an awesome call. That is an awesome, awesome movie. I love Awakenings. That's another one that just doesn't get enough recognition as much as it deserves. For some reason, too, with a stacked cast like that, Awakening's definitely On the Waterfront is a masterpiece. So I could agree with all that. Tootsie, another one that's a masterpiece. Easy Rider, I haven't seen in a while. I don't remember loving that movie except for Jack Nicholson, but anytime Jack Nicholson's anything, I love him. And Matt Mead wrote, I just finished Chilly Scenes of Winter. I popped it in right when I got home. Great story of unrequited love, and there's some hilarious dark comedy in there. I loved it. So yeah, that sounds like a movie that's right up my alley, Matt. Thanks for telling me that actually. So maybe I will grab that because I still got until July 28th until the Criterion 4K sale is over. So I got a little bit of time. Definitely can't wait for that because that sounds like a movie that I would really love. Sounds like it's up my alley. So maybe that's one I'll grab because what do we got? Like 2 more weeks of the sale. Got to really make some tough cuts. Rogue One 677. Really, was he that bad? Yeah, I don't own a 4K, but I don't get 4K digitally. Yeah, I do that. Definitely worth $20, Matt Meter. Yeah, that's a steal at that price. Mostly just giveaways I do. Rogue 167 wrote. Yeah, I mean, Heat's 4K I thought was it just was too dark and they changed the color temperature around too much. And I saw Jeff at Films and Homes review of it and he said it looks better on OLED. Now I have 2 OLED TVs. I tested it on both of them. I still think it's too dark. Is it better than an LED TV? Sure, it is, but in comparison to the previous release Blu-ray, I'm just not gonna watch the Heat 4K. It turns the resolution up, but that's not enough. It's too dark of a 4K. This doesn't feel like how the film was intended to be. That 4K, it really bothers me. It's not the worst though. It's really that's not one I would say you have to burn and throw away. I don't. It's not planes, trains offensive. That's planes, trains, and automobiles is the only 4K that I have actually watched and gone, wow, how the hell did you fuck that up that bad? Because they ruined that movie as far as the 4K goes. Uh, Matt Mead wrote, I didn't mind Heat's transfer at all, but I have higher end OLED Sony A08J, and I've heard that it does make a difference. And I have a Panasonic player UB820. So yeah, you got all the bells and whistles as far as that goes. Actually almost I wanted to get that Sony A80. I have an LG C2 OLED in my living room, and this is an LG OLED C1. And because the OLED, this one's smaller, actually sometimes looks better. And then I have the Sony X800 4K player. That's what I do my reviews on. And then sometimes I'll use the Series X just to test HDR for comparison purposes. But I don't know. I still thought that it was too dark, in my opinion. I really do. I want to love it, but I prefer the Blu-ray. That's just personal preference. If you like the 4K, that's cool. I'm glad. I wish I did. I really, really wish I liked the 4K. I still own it. I still got it on my shelf. I'm not throwing it out. I'm not throwing it out. But and then you wrote, yeah, I agree. It's darker than the Blu-ray for sure. So at least we're on the same page. Secular Monk wrote, what transfer do you want redone from the negatives, T2 or Heat? I would prefer T2. I mean, that's still my favorite, one of my favorite movies ever. So I would definitely want them to do another rescan of that. I feel like they could do a great job with it. It's Terminator 2, so that's one I would absolutely want a new scan of. I don't think it's going to happen anytime sure, if I'm being honest. Rogue 1677 wrote, if honestly, if I had to think about what the worst Blu-ray I own is, it's probably the 4-film collection. Its quality is so bad, and I'm glad I replaced this Blu-ray disc for Superman Returns. The Prophecy 4-film collection. I haven't seen that, but you're not selling me on it. Superman Returns, though, is kind of rough too at points. I haven't seen it since it came out, and I didn't rewatch it when I was doing my Superman watch through since it never got a 4K release. For some reason, even they're forgetting about Superman Returns, which is weird. Shamrock Balls wrote, speaking of Heat, are you a Manhunter or Silence of the Films guy? Silence of the Lambs guy. So I love them both. I do. Michael Mann's Manhunter is one of the most underrated movies ever. It's the first time we ever see Hannibal Lecter. And actually, that is Brian Cox's first U.S. film was Manhunter. He's the first guy to ever play Hannibal Lecter. I think that movie is great. It's shot like, a Miami Vice episode that Michael Mann was doing around the time. I love that movie. I still prefer Silence of the Lambs, though. Silence of the Lambs is probably in my top 20 movies all time. I try and watch that one every single year. Manhunter is a great movie. Don't get me wrong. That's one I would love on 4K. But I still think that Silence of the Lambs is a better movie. I think that Anthony Hopkins does a better job playing Hannibal Lecter. Brian Cox is Hannibal Lecter. He's kind of missing like the comedy a little bit. Like, he's a little bit scarier, I think. I think Brian Cox actually is a little bit scarier than Hannibal Lecter as far as Anthony Hopkins Hannibal Lecter goes. But I think Brian Cox, I could see him eating people, whereas Anthony Hopkins, I don't know. I have a little bit harder time believing that he eats people. Either way, or eating people is wrong, guys. So definitely don't do what either of them are doing. Rogue 1677, my bad, cut off again. Don't worry about it, buddy. I think I got the gist of it. Then Adalbo Rivera wrote, you should buy the Samsung S95B is a QLED is brighter than a conventional OLED. I haven't had a Samsung TV in a while. I had a bad experience with two Samsung TVs. I had two Samsung TVs in the last. One was a plasma, so it's probably not Samsung's fault. But then I also had a Samsung LED. I actually still have it. It's in my basement right now. Both have the same power source problem where the TV would turn on and then it would turn off and then turn back on. So I've had some bad experiences with Samsung that's kind of cooled me on going back to their 4K TVs, where my last two Sony 4K TVs, no issues whatsoever. I've had no problems with anything that LG has done so far. So good with them. So I'm a little hesitant to go back. So Sony, honestly, great experiences with Sony as far as their TVs go. I've had them in other bedrooms in my house, and I've loved everything that they've done. But I just haven't tried the Q90s yet, as far as their QLEDs go. I do want to try them eventually. Secular Monk wrote, recently found TH Blu-ray Steelbook of Superman Returns for $4. Man, that's a steal. I'm gonna have to go back and rewatch Superman Returns. Rogue 1677. I mean, I do own the Steelbook for Planes, Trains, and Automobiles from my mom. That's my regular Blu-ray of Planes, Trains, and Automobiles is so bare bones, and it's a shame because my Planes, Trains, and Automobiles 4K has a nice slipcover on it, and that's the one I'm not going to be watching it. And Nope DVD. So Nope is actually, the 4K for Nope is beautiful. I just hate that they cut that off, like the 4K Ultra the HD logo. It's on the box, and then under right on it, it looks so bad when you pull it out. John Doe Juggalo wrote, so I'll be involved with my first ever live stream on Tuesday evening. Hopefully I do okay. Oh, where are you doing your first live stream? Is it going to be on your page, John Doe Juggalo? I'll definitely check it out. Tuesdays, depending on the time I'm at work, but I'll throw it on my phone and I'll let it play and I'll check out what you're doing. Let me know where it is. I'll definitely check it out. Shabrak Balls wrote, eating people is wrong. It is wrong. I just want to make sure that everybody in this chat knows that. Not everybody on the planet Earth does, unfortunately. There's a couple people out there who have been caught eating people. Matt Mead wrote, I don't think Samsung supports Dolby Vision, which is a turnoff for me. They use HDR10. Is that true? I did not know that Samsung didn't support. I haven't had a Samsung TV that I've had as my regular TV in about 7 years. Still have one. 808 Physical Media. Hey, John, do you think the actor writer strike will affect new physical media releases? So I actually dived into a little bit. This is actually a big talking point on tomorrow's Let's Talk Physical Media. And me and Faith, we talked a lot about the writer strike and the SAG after strike that's going on. I don't think we're going to have a physical media be affected at this at all. Actually, this could benefit us. We actually probably won't even see the repercussions of this as fans until next year, depending on how long the strike lasts, because movies already, they're already in the can, so they have releases. Depending on how long this takes, we'll start seeing delays next year, but this definitely won't affect physical media. If anything, this will benefit physical media because the studios will start needing more income and they will probably look, hopefully, to physical media as means of income, and we'll get more releases. Now, what concerns me is they will most likely do what they always do, and they're going to raise the prices to help circumvent their income, to help make more money. And the easiest way to do that is to raise the prices on everything. So unfortunately, I think that's what will end up happening, but I don't think we'll get hurt as far as releases go. If anything, I could expect us to see an increase. But that's just my opinion, just because the studios don't need permission to put out anything as far as physical media goes, and they don't need any actors to sign off on it. They own the rights to it. John Doe Juggler, I love my LG CX. I won't go without Dolby Vision again. That's the TV Matt has, the CX. I love the LG CX. Yeah, Dolby Vision is definitely, sometimes movies like Men in Black, Dolby Vision does so much better than the HDR10. Actually, if you guys go back and watch my Men in Black review, it's in between the time where I switched TVs and 4K players, and when I switched to Dolby Vision, it really improved the Men in Black 4K so much that I was like, I have to now make sure I'm comparing both. And then, what's it called? Did you get, where am I? Where am I? Has anyone seen Criterion's All That Heaven Allows or The Last Waltz? There are two movies that I'm thinking of grabbing. The Last Waltz is a great movie. I don't have it on Criterion though, but definitely check that one out. Never saw That Heaven Allows though. Did you get Scream 6 on 4K? That's what Kevin I'll just asked me, and I have the 4K for Scream 6, and it looks good. Looks good. Rogue 1677. No, I haven't gotten it yet, and I felt bad because somebody did ask for the digital code for that. I'm probably gonna get that. Waiting for a sale when it drops under $20. Like I said, like I saw Scream 6. I kind of already reviewed the movie. Not really in a rush to get it again. I do want that 4K though. I'm definitely gonna get it at some point. John Doe Juggalo, it's going to be over on Bob's Blu-rays right here on YouTube from 8:30 p.m. to about 11 p.m. I think. Make sure you share that link, John Doe Juggalo, so I can definitely jump in there and definitely check you out on there. I'm excited to see how you do. I'm sure you'll be great, man. I know you'll do awesome. You have great takes. I definitely looking forward to it. Just make sure you share the link so I can definitely check you out on there. And perfect time. I go on break in my job at 8:30, so I'll check you out. And I leave work, so I can definitely check out most of that. Secular Monk wrote, I think the strike will mean more catalog titles. Titles that we never thought would come out will be released. Disney Fox is sitting on things, for example. Yeah, they're sitting on Fight Club and Aliens. That's what's really getting me. They can release those at any time. Shamrock Balls wrote, Did you ever hear the story of that man advertised to eat someone? He got a response and and he ate him. What? I didn't hear about that. Who ate somebody? That's insane. Actor writer strike will delay Avatar 3 for another 10 years. Well, I more than likely, yeah. I mean, I'm pretty sure James Cameron was writing out the delay before it even happened. And he's like, "Oh, perfect! I got an excuse now." Is Avatar 3 summer 2034, guys. You heard it here first. Uh, Adobo Rivera. I have played movies with both Sony A90J with D Vision and S95 with HDR10, and because the QLED is brighter than a regular OLED, the movies look better with 9S95B. Really? I don't want to I don't know how yours looks. I can't really say because I've never seen a Q90 except in displays at Best Buy, and it does look beautiful. I'm not against it. I just haven't seen it personally to know for sure. I'm just really happy right now with my stuff. I did almost get that Sony A90 that came out a couple years ago because that had an OLED panel on it that I wanted to definitely get. I know many people who prefer Samsung who will never stray from Samsung TVs, and I appreciate that. Just right now, I'm definitely going to be sticking with my LGs for a few years. I just bought them last year, and funds are tight, so I definitely can't buy anything new for a while. So I'm definitely going to be sticking with these for as far in the near future goes. So, but I'm glad that you like them, Adolfo. That's awesome. I appreciate that you like that Sony A90 and the Samsung Q 900 or whatever. I'm sorry, I'm reading it wrong. That's awesome. I definitely I can appreciate that. Kevin Elro, every time I try to use Dolby Vision on my Sony 4K, there's audio but no picture. Not sure what I'm doing wrong. That is very strange. That should not be happening. I don't know why that would actually be happening. Maybe a wiring issue could be, but you probably already checked that. So I'm not too sure why that would even be happening to you. I don't understand at all, actually. Matt Me just wrote, I just confirmed that Samsung does not support Dolby Vision. They use their own Yeah, Samsung is basically, they like to use their own stuff. But that's their big thing is they're into their own technology. They don't really it's kind of like Apple, They like their own stuff, their own tech. Like they don't adapt other people's tech into their stuff. And it's understandable. Like they're doing a great job. And like I said, they love Samsung. They love it. And then we got Secular Monk. Are you excited for Dune 2? Cannot wait for Dune 2. I'm one of my most anticipated this year. So I love the first Dune. I've loved Denis Villeneuve for a very long time. His movies are always something that you should see on the big screen. He's another one that really cares about the theatrical experience, pretty much since Prisoners, which is a great movie as well. I think Prisoners is fantastic, but that's in one of his movies that hasn't gotten released on 4K. But he's kind of very similar to Nolan, since getting back to Nolan a little bit. He's very similar in that sense, where he kind of he makes these beautiful looking movies. Dune is one of the best looking 4Ks out there. That's a great one. Dune 2, I'm sure, is going to be a great looking movie. And we're going to finally close out the loop because I can't wait to see this movie. Matt Mead and Kevin L are talking about their players that are down here. And then we got Socular Monk asking, have you seen the new Willy Wonka trailer? Excited for that too. I saw it and I'm a little worried about it. I like Timothy Chalamet. I get what they're going for. I don't know how I feel about the Oompa Loompas. That's a whole nother thing. Timothy Chalamet, though, he's usually pretty good. He's pretty solid. I don't know if we needed this movie. I wasn't blown away by the trailer, but I'll definitely be seeing it in December when it comes out. I think the original Willy Wonka from the 70s is a masterpiece. Gene Wilder is perfect. I don't know how you're going to be able to top that, but I'm not too excited, but I'm definitely going to be seeing it. The trailer didn't raise my excitement in any way, but I'm still going to be seeing it in theaters, and I'm definitely excited to see it. But I'm a little bit numb on it, but I'm sure it'll be at least decent. We'll see. The Oompa Loompas definitely freak me out a little bit. 808 Physical Media wrote, will actors writers strike affect actors from doing physical media special features? Okay, so I was talking to my wife about this today because we have tickets to go see the Always Sunny podcast taping in October over here at the Radio City Music Hall. And we were talking does this affect that? From what I understand, the only thing that actors cannot do is work if the studio wants you to do something that is set up, you're allowed to be an anchor on a news show because that's nobody wrote that. You're kind of the writers. That's all promoting news. So I don't think it's going to affect them doing special features. But I don't know if the studios would be also into inviting them for that right now. So that might actually hurt it. But I don't think that it would have an effect on them doing it. But I don't know for sure if that would be categorized as studio work. But there are certain jobs that they're allowed to do. That's why they're still allowed to make podcasts. They can still like do stand-up comedy, anything that's just as long as they're not involved. Like if they have contracts with Paramount or WB, they can't go and film for them anything that's a production for them. So all movie sets are completely shut down. Anything like that, they're not allowed. Any TV show, none of that stuff can be made right now. Any SAG member cannot do anything like that. But if like they have a job as a news anchor, they can go do that still, which is pretty cool. So at least they can still circumvent some income. If they have podcasts, I know people who have part of the Writers Guild who've still been making podcasts, and that's kind of helped them with income as far as that goes. So I don't know if they can still do that as far as extra features, but I also don't think they would, if that makes sense. Rogue 1677 wrote, I'm very divided on the Willy Wonka trailer, but I didn't like it. And I did laugh. Well, there's one movie I'm avoiding to watch again, Skinamarink, Visibly Disturbed. Yeah, that one really got you, huh? Rico, who won it, hasn't told me what he thought of it yet. That movie has some imagery in there that will get under your skin, especially if you remember waking up in the middle of the night as a kid and just the TV's on, you don't know where your parents are, and you just get that fear over you. That movie really did capture that fear. So I don't blame you for that one. Senior Makro, my understanding is that anything that is characterized as promotion for a project is prohibited. So yeah, I guess any kind of special feature would be considered promotion. Like I know that they're not allowed. That's why we had Barbie and Oppenheimer having screenings and everything before Thursday. And actually, if you guys saw, the actors walked out of the movie mid-movie because now they're on strike, so you can't do any more promotion. Most talk shows have been shut down anyway because of the writer strike, so now you won't see any promotion about any of these films going forward from any of the big actors. So anything that's like coming up in the next few weeks, you're not going to see promotion for it. Anyone working on Disney's, the Haunted Mansion, which is a big property for Disney this summer, you're going to see no promotion unless these strikes end before that. So we'll definitely like that. And then you got, teenage. That's why we have so much in July and August. Like we have Blue Beetle. We don't really have too much in August. We have the Meg 2, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Maybe that's why they wanted everything out in July this year, because they're going to be losing a lot of their promotion. Kevin L wrote, when are you doing the giveaway, and why did you pick Skinamarink? Well, I just picked Skinamarink because I just bought the Blu-ray, and I figured I'm probably not going to go back and watch it, so I figured I'd do a giveaway for it. And I want to do more giveaways in the future, and I think I'm going to give away some stuff, like, because I buy movies to do reviews, and if I don't think I'm going to go back to them, I'll start doing giveaways of those movies. That way you got the review, and then that's what I do for giveaways. Because I do want to do more giveaways as far as physical goes. Like we do the digital code giveaway every single Friday, but I want to do more physical giveaways in the future. Obviously money has to be right for that. But if it's a movie that I'm never going to watch again, I'm not going to sell it or return it. I'll just do a giveaway here on the channel, let you guys have it. So that's kind of how it worked out with Skinamarink. I figured I'm never going to see it again, so might as well do a giveaway for it instead of like trying to sell it or anything. That was at least my thinking of it. Kevin, does your Dolby Vision work on Netflix for you? Yeah, it does work on Netflix. That's one thing. Digital, as far as Xbox or PlayStation goes, guys, you can stream on Dolby Vision, but you cannot watch movies on 4Ks on Dolby Vision on your Xbox. So if you're using a 4K player, your PlayStation or your Xbox Series X or Xbox One as your primary 4K player, it's not going to play Dolby Vision from a disc. But if the streaming services like Netflix or Disney Plus, they have Dolby Vision, you can watch it with that. Same thing with Dolby Atmos. Some reason you can do Dolby Atmos no problem on an Xbox, but you can't do Dolby Vision. I do not understand that. I can't understand it, because I would say it's a rights thing with Dolby, but you have Dolby Audio, no problem. So I don't understand. So Kevin, Matt and Kevin are working on doing some research with each other. So that's pretty cool. Secular Macro, coincidentally, Disney is still going ahead with their premiere of Haunted Mansion next week. They have rebranded it a fan event. Yeah, well, they're going to have no actors there, so I guess they're going to probably invite some fans in there off the street. I'm not too sure what exactly their plans are as far as that goes, but It's gonna be interesting. Just letting you guys know if you have any final questions. I didn't realize it was 3:53, but I got to get out of here in like 7 minutes at the latest. So, any last questions, comments? Make sure you get those in right now. But yeah, as far as the haunted mansion goes, that is pretty curious exactly what they're doing with that. I can't believe they're even going through with it. If I'm being honest. Uh, Okay, Gateway Physical Media. Did you pre-order Scream Factory 4 movies, Chucky's 4K? I only pre-ordered Bride of Chucky. I think I told you guys this. I didn't. I refuse. I can't watch Seed of Chucky ever again. That movie is atrocious. The other two that came after it, Curse of Chucky, Cult of Chucky, are pretty good. I might buy those on 4K eventually, but you will definitely get a review here for Bride of Chucky 808. Hugo review coming up this week. I'm not too sure when. Actually, I wanted to review, guys. I would let you guys know now. I wanted to review on my 4Ks Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, and then Oppenheimer and Barbie on Friday and Saturday. But none of them got here yet. So the first new 4K review this week, like To Live and Die in LA, Hugo, and Breathless, those will be out on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. So Monday, I'm actually still thinking up a video of what I'm going to do because I expected one of those to be here already, but it just did not happen. John Doe Juggler wrote, I use my dedicated player strictly for Dolby Vision discs. PS5 is a pretty good for everything else. Yeah, I listen. The Xbox, my Series X, is a great 4K player. It just hurts that I can't watch it with Dolby Vision. But if a disc does just have HDR10, it looks great. It's very comparable to my Sony player as far as that goes. I think it's awesome. So if I, forced to watch something in just HDR10, I don't mind coming in here. And even when I test the discs, I will test the HDR10 on my Xbox to see how it looks. So it's still a solid player. It's just, you miss certain features. It's really hard to get everything that plays with every single thing. You really have to spend a lot of money to get everything that works. Rogue 1677. What's the next giveaway for your physical and codes? And what's Monday's video? Don't know what Monday's video is yet. I might just do like a list of something yet, or maybe I'll review a 4K I haven't reviewed on the channel yet. But yeah, that's what I'll be doing my digital code giveaway. Next physical giveaway, we'll do something in August, and I'll tell you guys now. I announced it next on tomorrow's video, but for my wrestling fans out there, I'm gonna do a live stream of SummerSlam on this channel. So you won't see SummerSlam on here, but I'll watch it on this TV, and then we'll talk it while it's on TV. Since it's on a Saturday night and I'm not working, why not? I figure we'll all watch We'll watch SummerSlam live from Detroit together. If anyone wants to, hang out with me while we do it, that's no problem. Let's see. Kevin says, "Oh wow, you guys really are figuring this out. Wow, you guys figured it out, huh? Did you pick up the Scream Sick and Sizzle 4K Ultra HD? No, this week was a slow one for me. Anyway, all I picked up this past week was just After Hours was the only 4K I reviewed this past week. This week upcoming, I have 3 new 4K reviews coming up, and then I got a bunch in August and September. So this week was kind of slow for me as far as new 4Ks. Had to make some tough cuts, but this week I got Breathless, To Live and Die in LA, and Hugo. So I got a lot of 4K, and then I will be reviewing Oppenheimer and Barbie. So a lot of stuff coming up this week. John Doe Juggler, I keep a list of my 4Ks to support Dolby Vision so I can reference which player to use quickly. Oh, that's genius, man. I really have to start doing it because I'm always like searching on the back because sometimes like I work nights, so I come home at like 9:30, and sometimes my wife's watching something on TV, and especially if I'm doing a review and if it's on Dolby Vision, I have to watch it in the living room because that's where my Dolby Vision is set up on my Sony player, and I can't watch it because the 4K player here, this Xbox, doesn't have it. So sometimes I'm like, oh, maybe it'll just have HDR10 so I can watch it in the office and I don't have to bother her. But not everything. That's a genius idea, man. I'm gonna have to start doing that. Oh man. So that's crazy, actually. So let's see. Last question. Rogue Ones. Who do you think wins too much of the code giveaways? Rogue 1677 wrote, definitely the best audio I heard is DTX for Jurassic Park and the Fate of the Furious. Well, yeah, those movies are perfect. As far as DTX tracks goes, I don't know if I think anyone wins the giveaway too much. You got people in there who've been in the entering system. If you go back to the way beginning of this channel, we had like 6 people in the giveaway, and some people have been on that wheel ever since the beginning, and I don't think they've ever won. James, if you ever see James on the wheel, James, I forget, I'm going to pronounce his last name wrong, so I won't even say it. He was one of the first people, and he's only won the giveaway once. And then there's guys like Daniel N who have won the giveaway like 4 or 5 times. So the wheel just, it favors people. It seems like. I do feel bad. Faith Williams in here. Yeah, I gotta go pick her up. I need to watch To Live and Die in L.A. Shamrock Balls Road. Shamrock, if you don't have that on Blu-ray, let me know because I have an old Blu-ray here. I have it. I let Matt bother it, and I don't think he's gonna keep it. If he doesn't keep it, I'll send it to you to have. John Doe Juggle. My wife says I'm too picky, but I like to watch the best way possible. So I get that, man. Listen, that's how I am too. Okay, Kevin, I'm gonna go look further. I love working on this stuff, man. Yeah, you guys, Matt, I don't want to interrupt you and Kevin talking or anything. So if you guys want to link up real quick, so you guys can keep doing what you're doing. But as you guys see, I have to get out of here. That's my wife getting on me about that because I do have to go pick her up from work at 4, and I'm supposed to be there at 4, so that's in 1 minute. So, so I'm gonna get out of here, guys. Thank you all so much for being here with me. I enjoyed this conversation. This was great. One of the best we've ever done. I had so much fun. I appreciate you all being in here. Thank you guys all so much. Matt, Shamrock, Kevin L. Every single week. 808 Physical Media, John Doe Juggalo, 70-year-old Blu-ray collector. Thank you guys so much. Remember, we'll be here next Saturday. Doing it all again. I don't know what the topic to start us off with, but we just like to come in here and just talk shop. So whatever you guys want to talk about, whether it be physical media, movies, 4K players, wrestling, TV, I don't care. I'm here to do it all, and we'll be seeing you guys all next week. Thank you guys so much for being here. I really do appreciate it. I can't express it. I'm very bad at expressing my gratitude, but thank you guys so much. Thank you. See you guys around.